Welcome. A couple minutes late. We don't have the benefit of having Frick here tonight. He's DJing a wedding somewhere, so he's popping in remotely. Ken's taking his place.
Yeah.
All good. So this is the night before we start our 36th class, Purple Heart Project. We did a little bit of a complication this time. We couldn't fly these guys into Bangor, Maine because there was no hotels available. It must be a concert or something taking place. So we flew them into Moncton, New Brunswick. Luther came in yesterday. He's gone to get them. Several have been late, so who knows when they're going to arrive, but we'll be ready. So, and I got a question to start off with. And if you're, I'm sure everybody on here already knows. If somebody doesn't know why we do this, please mention something in the chat and I'll explain it. Otherwise, we'll just spend all the time answering questions. Then I'll fill you in on my last week. I'm ready, Ken.
Nobody's asked any questions yet.
We got a couple that Frick gave us.
Okay.
For the last week, I just flew in an hour and a half ago from Calgary, Alberta. My daughter Annika married Will Richards, sorry, on Friday. So that was, Annika was child number 7? Yes.
Ready?
Yeah.
Ready? Okay, Alfred Borg from Melbourne, Australia.
Hey, Alfred, can they hear Ken?
Yep.
Good day, Rob.
Alfred in Australia.
When I cut dovetails, some of my tails end up looking curved. What causes this and how can I improve? I'm using your dovetail saw. It's not the saw, it's definitely my technique. Thanks.
When you cut dovetails, some of the tails ends up looking curved. Well, I wish we, well, you just asked it. Hopefully you're there and you can answer my question. Jake, got a dovetail for me somewhere?
Here.
You didn't think I'd have to reach far. So, Alfred, I just need you to explain for me, if Jake will come in close enough to see this. Are you referring to this line? This line right here looks curved? Or one of these lines? I don't know which line you're talking about being curved, but if you...
Well, tell him what the lines are called.
We don't call the lines anything.
Well, I know, but is it the...
I'm sure you're not talking about the baseline on either side. So I'm assuming when you say curved, that this saw cut from there to there is either going one way or the other. That is my assumption, but I need you just to clarify. In the meantime, we'll go on to the next one. Ken?
Okay, the next one is from Alan in Sacramento, California.
Hi, Alan.
I am new to woodworking. I just bought the material to build my Cosman workbench, and I see that you recommend lacquer or tung oil finish. I haven't heard you mention shellac in any of your videos that I have watched. Is shellac an inferior finish for a workbench compared to the ones you recommend? If so, why?
Well, good question. A little bit of a lengthy answer. So, long time ago in a faraway land, the craftsman made the furniture and the finisher finished the furniture. It was as much a skill as the guy that built it. And most people that do this as a hobby don't have the time to get really good at multiple types of finishes. And if you do, I congratulate you. But it takes a fair bit of time to get really skilled at the building process. So my approach has always been learn a couple of finish methods and get good at them. In other words, if everything you build, you either finish with one or the other, you're going to get enough experience that you'll be somewhat decent at it. But if you build 10 pieces a year, which would be a lot for most people, and you were going to do 10 different finishes, you don't really have time to get very good with any one of them in particular. So I've always used either a sprayed on lacquer, and I like the sprayed on lacquer because it's so easy to refinish. When you add one layer of lacquer to another, the top layer melts into the second layer, so you don't end up with two layers, you get one thicker layer. Easy to repair, easy to apply. Oil takes a lot longer, meaning multiple coats in order to get a decent finish, but it's really simple. I mean, you're literally wiping it on, keeping it wet for as long as the container tells you to do, and then wiping it off. and do that multiple times. I usually leave about a day between coats, and it ends up giving you a really nice finish after you get 5, 6 coats on there. I don't think I've ever used shellac. I've never been left wanting something better than what I already got, so I haven't gone looking. But my purpose for you putting a finish on a workbench is not to do anything other than to protect the surface from glue that frequently gets dripped or splattered, and it makes it easier to remove it, as opposed to having it on bare wood, and then it ends up taking part of the wood with it when you try to scrape it off. So the only reason, and of course if it's a solid wood workbench, you just want to, you can't stop it or prevent it, but you can slow the rate of moisture change from dry to wet, back to dry. So if shellac works for you, go ahead. Just anything that'll protect the surface from dirt as well. Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, Wes Brown from Florida.
Hi, Wes.
Any tips for cutting dovetails and very long boards? Cutting a hole in the floor below my bench vise is not an option.
Yeah. Well, so we built Bo's coffin here 3 weeks ago.
Today?
3 weeks ago tonight. We started on it. In fact, right now we were building it. So can we take a walk over there? Yeah.
What was your section?
So in our other shop, we have, what are the ceilings over there?
13?
13 feet. So over top of where Kevin builds the benches, we had a lot of area. So we decided to build a mezzanine up there to store packing materials. And I got Ken Reindeer, who works for me, to build stairs, really cool stairs, that are pivoted right here, and then a winch lowers them down, use them when you need them, and rise them back up. So what we did is we lowered them down, and there's a railing up there. So we went up there and we clamped the side of the coffin onto the railing, handrail, which is good and sturdy, and I put some rubber mats down, I knelt on there, and that's how I cut the dovetails. So I've cut dovetails on the end of something that might have been 5, 6 feet long, and I made a brace on my bench, just triangulated it, and that worked. But that was then you got to stand on a chair or something. You can do that. If it's really long, then find, even if it's an outdoor structure somewhere, a set of stairs where you can go on and you brace it or clamp it to the handrail or something like that. I've tried laying it flat on the bench and then laying down and trying to cut it, and that's just not my style. And of course, as you already ruled out, cutting a hole in the floor. What other things have we done?
What about bracing the board itself in your vise?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I meant. It's the only ones I can think of right at the moment. Where, Ken, in a normal house could you brace something and be able to access the end of the board that might be 5 or 6 or 7 feet long?
Staircase if you had a 2-story home and it was laid out, right?
Yeah. Without going through a major ordeal. Yeah, the simplest one, if you have the room in your shop, is to put the board in your vise and then brace it on the back side so that it doesn't move. Just a little bit of triangulation will do that. And then build yourself a platform or something to stand on so that you're operating. But you want to have it at a comfortable height, which is going to be duplicating about what you would find at your bench. I'm looking around here to see if there's anything else. It just happened that you mentioned that, because we just did that 3 weeks ago, and it worked out great. Bo hasn't complained. Next, Ken.
Okay, Dean from Bolivia.
Hi, Dean.
I have a bunch of 3x3 stock and I want to make a base for a table. What is a nice way to join 2 horizontal pieces to a vertical so that all the sides are flush? Essentially, the base will be a cube structure made entirely of 3x3 wood.
Okay, I gotta.
He's got a hard time envisioning it. You gotta ask him again. talk slow, please.
Okay, I gotta hear all these parts again.
Okay, a bunch of 3x3 stock. He wants
3
to
by
make-
3 by 3, so we're talking relatively thick pieces.
Wants to make a base for a table.
A base for a table.
What's a nice way to join two horizontal pieces to a vertical so that all the sides are flush?
He wants to join two horizontal pieces to a vertical, so a leg, two aprons joining a leg as we're doing the base of a table, and he wants the outside edge to be flush.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the mortise and tenon would be the first thing that would come to mind. And if it was 3 by 3, I would do a double tenon. So instead of reducing that, what?
Do you want to show them?
With what? Oh, yours? Is that what? No, you don't have 3 by 3s.
Yeah.
What have you got?
Well, it's at least 10 corners.
Okay, we'll bring it over.
I'm talking about the mortise and tenon.
Yeah, where it was quartered, 4 of them.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll show you some. Jake's in the process of making a kitchen table that they're going to have finished when little Moosey graduates from high school. He's now 4. And Jake started, I think, before he was born.
It was. Well before.
Huh?
Well before.
Well before he was born, really? Okay, so this, what I'm going to show you here is just a way to strengthen the joint without severely weakening it because of mortising out a great big hole, or taking your big thick piece and reducing it substantially. So this has 4.
That's 3 inches, isn't it?
This would be 3 by 3. Not quite, but awfully close.
Started.
2 3/4 maybe? Nope. Just under 2 15/16. So if you're going to do your piece the same, I would do something like that. Now the only problem is if you're doing a table base, you're probably going to have another one over here. So in those circumstances, it's okay out here because this one's not going to interfere with this one. These ones will touch, so you might have to just shorten them.
Yeah, but you remember they're also going way out to the edge. Right, because he wants them.
Well, no, yeah, but they're 3 by 3. This is 3 inches, and the piece going into it is 3 inches. So now it's going to be specific to what you're doing, but there's what you want to do. Something like that. Now that in favor. Now the other option would be you leave this all as one piece, so you cut this great big hole out of here. You could do that, but I just don't like how much material it removes. I like the fact that you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 holes, and you've got connective tissue still remaining, so it doesn't severely weaken
But
it.
it's also, it gets its strength from the gluing surface. And that has almost double the amount of gluing surface.
Yeah, well, yeah,
You lose a little
you'd
bit
add
in the
this. So you would have twice as much minus whatever
You lose.
you're losing in here, so you do gain more. But you got to think about it. You're cutting out all this, then you're going to do the same thing over here. So if you cut one great big mortise here and one great big mortise here, there's not a whole lot left holding it together. So I prefer that way of doing it. A little more work, but... And as cool as it looks, once it's put together, you're never going to see it. Take lots of pictures. Okay, sorry, Ken.
Jim E. from Abbotsford, Wisconsin.
Hi, Jim.
Best way to prep boards for edge glue up without a table saw or jointer.
Okay, read that again, please.
Best way to prep boards for edge glue up without a table saw or jointer.
Without a table saw or a jointer. And you want to glue a bunch of boards together. Well, certainly doable. Just, I don't know if you're prepared for the amount of work. What I would do, and I've done, I'm looking around to see if there's an example in here. when we did that breadboard end, Jake, did we do that by hand?
Breadboard end on.
Just that big piece of pine, we did the breadboard end.
I suspect we would. That
So-
was YouTube, right?
Yeah. No, I don't think we did. I don't think we did. So you're gonna do a great big side, and I would be inclined to work with or to process. Let's say the piece you're gonna glue up is gonna be 3 pieces. I would be inclined to process each one of those 3 pieces. I mean, when I say process, make it flat and thickness it so that the bottom is flat, the top is parallel to the bottom, it's all squared up. Before I glue them all up. And if you make them all the same, and as a real careful glue up, then you just got to come in and just flush up where the 2 pieces join, and you should do it so all you're having to remove literally is just a little bit of glue. Possibly a little bit of misalignment. That, as opposed to gluing up 3 rough pieces that you just plane the edge and then processing that whole thing, that would be a lot more work. So I would process each individual piece first, and then if you're going to prepare the edges to glue together, I'll show you the easiest way to do it. And when I say the easiest, I mean you got to be fairly good at this to do it any other way. So you can use your bench. If you don't have a bench, you can use your floor. I'll see if I can't demonstrate this. So I'm going to take my plane, get my blade set. You can't do it on the fly. You got to do it before you start. So get that blade set so that it's parallel to the sole. Make sure you buy a grip so it's a little more comfortable to do. Now, I'm going to grab a piece of wood. You may have already seen this. Stop me if you have.
How long ago?
Huh?
How long ago? This.
Right, I can use this. I'll use this just because it's a lot longer. So here I've already dimensioned this piece. So it's flat on the bottom, top side is parallel to the bottom, and now I'm going to get the edge. And that's the part that's going to be really critical because you want a decent glue joint. So I would put my bench dog on here, get this stuff out of my way. Now I got to elevate it. I got to elevate this piece, and I need to elevate it with something that is the same thickness. I need 2 pieces of material that are the same thickness. So what have I got here? These 2 are the same. They are. Raise this up, put this in here, put this piece here. Now what I'm going to do to joint it, instead of trying to balance it, I think it might work better this way. I picked a lousy piece of wood to work on, but I think the first thing I'll do is just kind of sight down there and see what I'm looking at. Now, if you want to make it a little bit easier, if you're new to this and that just seems to be a little bit awkward, you can take a couple of clamps . Any idea where the rest of these are? No. I'm going to clamp right over top of that board, that spacer, and I'll do the same thing on this end. Can I reach down there with? Can't.
4-inch top.
Now that stays put. These pieces bring the board up so that it's all into the blade, and then I can go. Gotta get rid of the bumps first. This is going to keep my edge square. So the very setup I'm using means I'm going to be square in this direction. And then I can go around and I can just control by taking a little off here, a little off there, so that I get this edge nice and straight. And I'll just bring in the mating piece into it and make sure that they line up. You may want to spring that joint, which means you slight hollow in here, very slight, just to keep it so when you clamp together, these aren't opening up. Keep the blade nice and sharp. So much easier to work that way. And once you've got it clean, meaning get rid of any of the rough exterior, that's when you're going to bring your other piece in and hold it against it and keep working it until it actually makes contact across the entire length. So if I wanted to spring it, I would just come in here and take a bit. So I'm starting somewhere around here. I'm exiting before I get to the end so that there's no little skin tag left there. Eyeball it. And then I might take a complete pass or two, bring my other piece in and check it, and just keep doing that until you get a nice fit all the way. It's going to take some time, but certainly doable. And like I said, a little harder, but you can do it on the floor if you had to, if you didn't have a workbench or you didn't have a nice flat, reliable workbench. All right, next, Ken.
Michael Egan in the chat.
Hi, Mike.
Besides holly, what is your favorite wood?
Well, interesting that you should ask. So, my brother Randy lives in Lacombe, which is just outside of Red Deer, which is in between Calgary and Edmonton, which is in the province of Alberta in Canada. And he has his own business where he goes in and he subcontracts for insurance companies and has to buy building materials all the time. And he had this guy that worked at this lumber supply place that knew us from YouTube, and Randy looks a lot like me, so anyway, he made the connection. So Randy said he'd bring him in and I'd say hello to him next time. We went there and the guy doesn't work there anymore. But off to the side, they had this stack of exotic wood. And I'm thinking, what is this doing in a lumber supply? And I'm looking, I said, Brazilian rosewood? Are you serious? And I'm looking and I said, so the owner bought an estate, and he had a boatload, I shouldn't say a boatload, he had a lot of Brazilian rosewood. He had some beautiful Brazilian tulip wood, and if you don't know what that is, it's got pinks and reds and just smells fantastic. Huh? I did. I went on a spending spree. So I bought more than $2,000 worth of beautiful wood, bundled it all up, and shipped it home to myself. So it'll be here sometime. Actually, I thought it was going to be here already, but wow, what a find. Stuff had been around for a long time. So in case you don't know, Brazilian rosewood is illegal to trade in unless you can prove that it was harvested before the embargo. So paperwork in order, we'll be able to make some beautiful saws. So, wow, I couldn't believe it. I thought, they had Brazilian rosewood written on it, and the first thing I thought was this, wow, they don't know what they're talking about. And then I looked and I said, well, I know Brazilian rosewood. So I called Mel, and Mel, my buddy at Exotic Woods, that you should check out his site, because if you're ever near there, Burlington, Ontario, just outside of Toronto, you need to go there if you love wood. So I sent some pictures to Mel, and he said, that sure looks like Brazilian rosewood to me. You'd only have to plane it. It has a very, very unique smell. Anyway, so I bought one piece, and I said, oh no, I better take that one too. And by the end of it, I took it all. So, yeah. Now the question was favorite wood. Well, Pine is my northern white pine, and there's a lot of pines. Some stink. Northern white pine as a wood to live around. It's warm to the touch. It's I don't think there's another wood that ages better. And people will argue cherry. Well, yes, cherry does get a beautiful crimson red. But the problem is that with enough exposure to light, it also starts to go the other way and it bleaches right out. I've got cherry furniture in my home that looks like it's made out of birch. It's lost all of its color. Most of your blonde woods, maple, oak, birch, yellow with time. And I've yet to find a finish that does much other than prolong the inevitable for a short time. The dark woods just keep getting darker. I don't like what the walnut. Walnut tends to get a gray brown. But pine, northern white pine, just keeps getting this honey patina, and it's just a wonderful wood to grow with. If you have children, grandchildren, your furniture is going to get marked up, and that's okay with pine. It seems to be almost fitting. So I love holly. I love holly as an accent wood, because it is so white. And I want to do a box here right away with holly and ebony.
Is there much difference between northern white pine and eastern white pine?
I think it's the same thing.
Okay.
Northern white, eastern.
Next question is from Kev Elder on the chat. My dovetails are consistently tight. Any ideas?
Hey! Isn't that what we shoot for? That couldn't be what he meant. Yeah.
Maybe too tight, obviously.
So if you meant too tight, normally when we compliment somebody and say your dovetails are nice and tight, that's a compliment. If they're too tight to where they might be cracking or splitting, did he say he's using our method?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't he say? Oh no, sorry, that was someone else.
Somebody else did. So I developed a method in 2014. We call it the offset method. And it was partially something I learned from Ernest Joyce, who wrote the book, The Encyclopedia of Furniture Making, and partially something I added to it. And the end result was that you could, somebody brand new could knock out a perfect dovetail their first time. And we have that happen here on a regular basis when we teach a class. It'll happen this week on Tuesday. In order for it to work, the sides of your two pieces have to be square and straight. And your layout, Sean McDermott, a friend of mine and a wounded vet that came to our class in 2017, came up with this idea. We made a little device called the Sean Shim. So it's a piece of brass that's been very accurately milled. Paul Hayton takes care of that for us up in Ontario. And if you look real close, you'd see 24, 23, 24, 25, 26. That refers to thousandths of an inch. So the step between here and here is 23 thousandths of an inch. 24 here and right around. So what that allows you to do is to push one piece, the tailboard, either to the right, to the left, or to the right by the width of the saw kerf. I threw that in there intentionally. So the first thing you want to make sure is that when you're doing that, you do it very accurately. I tell people you always reference from the same side. If there's any discrepancy in your board, that's going to throw you off. So you always reference from the same side. And you want to make sure that when you do it, that it's not hung up on anything, that you're getting a really good representation. So I've already put this one together. So if I was doing it like this, this is my pin board, this is my tailboard, I would set my piece right here, and I would move the tailboard over. Obviously it's going to be flush out here, but that little offset would be the width of the saw kerf. And if your boards are tight, no, let me back up a little bit. What you're trying to do is you're trying to perfectly match the kerf of your dovetail saw. So if you have my saw, which I hope you do, and new, it's going to produce a kerf that's 24 thousandths of an inch. Sheet of paper is 5 thousandths of an inch, so it's just a little less than 5 sheets of paper. As that wears and as you sharpen it over time, the set is going to be reduced. The set, points of the teeth are sticking up like this. As you file them and sharpening, you're going to get less and less and less. So you can accommodate that by changing the amount of offset you do. If you're using, I assume you're using my method, if you're offsetting at 24 thou and it's too tight, well then, I'm going to make sure I say this to you right. If you try 23 thou, that means the board's not going to go over quite as far, obviously, and that's going to shrink the size of your pins by, in this case, 1/1000 of an inch on the outside half pins, 2 thou on the inside pins. Because when you move it over, it affects, in one case, it affects the left side of each pin. This only has a left side. And then when you move it the other way, it's going to affect the right side. Doesn't affect this one, affects the other side of this one. So now you have a thou going that way and a thou going that way. Or, in this case, a thou coming off of here and a thou coming off of there. So I'm for fear of confusing you, you want to recheck and make sure that you're matching that up perfectly. And Jake, can you think of any other reason why he would be too tight?
No.
Make sure your dovetail marking knife, so the system that we use a red-handled dovetail marking knife, but we replaced the old sharp blade with a sawtooth blade. So that is designed to be the exact same as this. So those two are the same. So after you've made your saw kerf, I'll just do this real quick. Entertaining offers for the tool cabinet behind me. Figure we got to sell it before somebody knocks it over. Now, when you transfer, you want that blade to fit in there just like that blade does. So it can't move left or right, giving you an inaccurate mark. And you want to check and make sure that they fit. You certainly wouldn't want it to be sloppy. I try to monitor every order, and Gina does as well. And oftentimes people won't realize it. They'll buy the regular dovetail saw, but they accidentally pick up the 19 thou sawtooth blade, which is designed for our small dovetail saw, the one we call our 3/4 saw. And if you do that, it's going to be sloppy in there. This one has a little thin blade, so it has to have its own dovetail marking knife. Other than that, I can't think of any other reasons why your joints should be too tight, consistently too tight. So check those out and ask again. And if it doesn't get corrected, we'll see if we can help you further. Solve this dovetail mystery. Next, Ken.
Vincent Esposito in the chat. Can Rob?
I remember him because every time I hear that name, I think of Phil and Tony.
Can Rob comment on his preferred steel for chisels and plane irons?
Yeah, so my any expertise I have is just as a user. I don't make blades, and I don't make chisels. We do everything but the blades. IBC does those for us. So I've been around this debate for a number of years. There used to be the raging debate between O1 and A2, and cryogenically treated A2. So it all has to do with the hardening process. The argument used to be that O1 didn't stay sharp as long, but it was easier to sharpen. And A2 was it would stay sharp longer, but it was harder to sharpen. Don't believe either one of them, because it takes us 32 seconds to sharpen, no matter what steel it is. So if it came down to the argument that O1 didn't stay sharp as long, and A2 stayed sharp longer, well, go with A2, because there's no difference in the sharpening time. So I have just the Rockwell hardness has a lot to do with how well it's going to hold an edge. And it seems, with my experience with Lee Nielsen and our own working, that 60-62 on the Rockwell seems to be ideal for woodworking planes and chisels. You get down in the 50s and it's going to be a little bit soft. I think saw blades steel is somewhere in the 50-52 because it's got to be sharpened with a file. You can't sharpen a 60-62 plane blade with a file because it's just harder than the file. So A2, cryogenically treated, seems to be the one that wins out. That's what we use. That's what we sell in our IBC blades.
Let's go back to the Alfred Borg question.
Alfred, yes, from Australia. Alfred from Australia?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did say it's the tail.
So the sides of his tail are curved. So Alfred, I'm assuming you're saying instead of having nice straight cuts, they're curving. Well, the only reason why a saw cut will curve is because the set is uneven. So I'll explain the problem and then we'll try to find a solution. So this saw blade, the teeth, half of the teeth are sticking out a little bit this way, and the other half of the teeth are sticking out a little bit that way. This saw plate, if I measured it right there, should measure 0.020. If I measure it right here on the widest point of the tooth line, it should be 0.024. And that's what gives you your clearance so that your saw doesn't bind. If you didn't have any set, you wouldn't get any deeper than that and it'll just jam. The ideal amount of set will allow the blade to slide through, but no side-to-side slop, and it cuts straight. If you have a little more set on one side than the other, the saw is going to favor the side with the most set, and it's going to want to slide toward that, and that's where you get that curve. If it came from us and nobody's messed with it, it should work perfectly. If not, send it back. I don't think, how many saws have we sold, Ken?
How many saws have we sold?
Yeah. How many saws have we sold in the last 5 years, Jake? Close to 5,000? All right, so there's somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 saws floating out there just in the last 5 years. So, and we've never had a complaint. So I'm guessing that there's something that's gone wrong. But the only reason your saw would curve, even if I can't even force it to do that. So nice light touch on the saw handle. That saw should cut beautifully straight. And if it doesn't, if you put a straight edge on that and it's not straight, I'm not talking square, I'm talking straight. Shortest distance between 2 points, no curves in the middle. And if that still will not work, send me a picture. Make a saw cut, just a saw cut, not your dovetail. Send me a picture of your saw cut. Cut down about 1.5 inches into the board and send it to support. Is that what it is? Support at RobCosman.com. Send it to Gina's attention, support at RobCosman.com, and she'll forward it to me so I can have a look at it, and we'll see if the doctor can diagnose it. Next, Ken.
Jack Lane wanted to be on tonight to talk about the bench brigade, but where Frick wasn't here, we didn't have the technical stuff.
Oh,
so
he should have known better.
So Thursday night,
he's going to be on Thursday?
He's going to join us Thursday night, but he needs bench brigade volunteers.
In certain places?
Yeah.
Well, let me give them just I'll give you a 2-minute. So every vet that comes to our program comes as our guest. Purple Heart Project covers all their expenses, all their travel expenses. We house them, we feed them. Each vet goes home with $5,000 worth of tools. Thanks to Jack Lane and the Bench Brigade, 5 years ago we started a program where volunteers under our direction would build a bench if one of the vets was in their local area, build it to our spec. We send them the vise and the bench dogs and the plans. They build it and they deliver it personally and make that connection. So we have volunteers in 5 different countries, but we need volunteers now where?
We need volunteers in Colorado, north to south.
Oh, all of Colorado?
All over the state of Colorado, we need bench brigade volunteers.
Oh, wait.
Now,
is he saying we just need more or we don't have any?
He didn't say, but we need more.
we need bench builders, bench brigade members in Colorado, and you don't have to be What level would you have to be in order to build this bench? I would say that if you could build a garden shed, you have the skill required to build this bench. We designed it. We designed this so that someone with minimal tools and minimal skill could build the bench, which is what you need in order to start hand tool woodworking. So it turned out, it was highly successful in terms of both the success of the build and the number of people that have done it.
He also needs volunteers in the El Paso, Texas area.
El Paso, Texas, we need volunteers, and all over the state of Colorado. Anywhere else?
No, that's the only two you gave.
And anybody else who wants to volunteer anyway, soon you volunteer, you get registered with Jack. He puts you on the map, and as soon as there's a vet in our class that is anywhere, and you happen to be the closest person, you're going to get that call. We bring in 42 combat wounded vets each year from all over. To date, we've had 2 come from Australia. Tony was just here 2 weeks ago. We've had 2 from Denmark, and Casper was here. He was my assistant in June, I think. And we've had 1 from Ireland. We've had most from the United States, and about 10% from Canada. So we'd love to have you. And those that do participate want to keep doing it. Jim Rossetti, too, up in Moncton, takes care of the Eastern Canadian guys through his woodworking guild up there called Kodiak Woodworkers. And they've built how many benches, do you remember?
Kodiak?
Yeah. It's over a dozen, I know. And then that other group isn't that other guild in South Carolina? They've built a boatload, too. Next.
Okay, Emerson says, "Hi Rob, I am from Brazil.
Hi Emerson.
Please show me how to use a concave spoke shave. Mine is razor sharp, but can't cut a bevel down blade. Only I invert it. What am I doing wrong?"
Okay, so this is a little bit of a difficult spoke shave to use, and the reason it is because you almost have to, how can I describe this? You literally have to guide the saw. You don't have much in terms of reference on the sole. Let me just turn the bands on real quick and cut a radius on this. You don't have the luxury of matching the radius on the sole to the radius on the board. So one size fits all. Now I'm using I really like this one. This is a Tom Lee Nilsson product, and it's a Preston, patterned after a Preston, and I just love it. It's nice and small and fits the hand. So I've got that blade way out too far. You want the blade sharp. It is a bevel down, so the bevel's on the bottom side, and you got to be really careful when you're sharpening because you don't have a whole lot of clearance. Now I'm going to use my aluminum hammer. So I've got a little bit of tension on the screw just to hold the blade in place. Okay, now let me check that and see. Looks to be pretty close to being parallel. I'll snug that up. So I want to come this way to the middle and this way. If I try to come up like this, I'm kind of against the grain, I'm going to tear it. So from this side, I'm going to turn this way and push. And you kind of have to roll with it. As you can see, that radius does not match, and what are the odds that the radius on the bottom of that is ever going to match the actual curve you're working on? So you just have to, you almost have to feel where the blade is. It takes some doing. And you're going to have to just practice before you go to work on the actual piece you're wanting to do it on. You may find it easier to pull, you may find it easier to push. Now, sometimes getting started like that, so I'll just turn it a little bit sideways so it doesn't end up digging a hole on you. And you try to get it, you want to get it square to the side so that when you're meeting here, it's a nice joint line instead of the word bevel, the one edge beveled a little bit one side and the other beveled the opposite side. Get a soft wood to practice on. I'm going to turn this around, see if I can't get a little better transition right up here where I'm starting. That's better. Spent a couple of days with my brother Randy, helping the Alberta farmers. It's better. And I got a bump right there though. And you have to decide, okay, at what point can I turn and go the other way to avoid tearing? Then pull it in. If I was wanting to finish this, I would pull the blade in so that my last passes were very minimal. That's your round bottom spoke shave. You can do a little bit with the flat bottom if it's a big enough slope, but when it gets tight, you're going to have to switch to a round bottom one. I'm not going to bother showing you the one that I don't like. We'll just leave it at that. I think my favorite of all the spoke shaves, my favorite is the small Prestons that Lee Nielsen makes. So that's the flat bottom, and that's the round bottom. Next, Rick and Ken. What a mess.
Okay, Adam Sanders says, I'm building a coffee table.
Adam Sandler?
Adam Sanders.
Oh. Hey, Adam.
Building a coffee table out of cherry. To get the thicker leg stock, is it acceptable to face glue 2 4/4 boards, or should I pony up to get some 8/4 cherry as well?
Well, the difficulty with cherry is the stuff never ages uniformly. So you'll mill up 2 pieces and they'll look exactly the same color. You glue them up and you think, oh, this is great. And then 4 months later, one darkens differently than the other, and there's your glue line right there in the middle. So I think I would always go with the full thickness piece. I know that's expensive, but depending on how good of a job you want to do on it, you can glue it together, keep the joint line in the least obvious surface, but chances of you actually hiding it perfectly are pretty slim, like I said, just because every piece of cherry seems to oxidize a little bit differently. So if it was me, I've got some, the last thing I made out of thick cherry was a 4-poster bed for our house. So I got some of that left over here. And I spent the money and bought the 16/4. I don't think it was 16/4, it was 12/4, because it ended up being finishing just a little under 3 inches square. 4 is pretty big for a piece of furniture. And I did the same thing. Actually, I did the dining room table that I made. We used 3x3 legs, and I used solid pieces there. Well, not solid, one piece. I didn't glue pieces up. So, yeah, I would go for it. Spend it. Next.
Captain Corp Eureka. I'm debating making my workbench out of either maple or southern yellow pine. Maple would be much more expensive, but southern yellow pine would become hard and heavy over time as it dries. What would you recommend?
Maple. I hate southern yellow pine. You're only going to build that bench once. Make it out of maple. I'm just not a fan of southern yellow pine. It's just blah. We're gonna do some nice giveaways on Thursday night because we didn't do any giveaways on that night that we had the big, or did we?
No.
No. So we'll get some nice giveaways coming up on Thursday night, which is when we're gonna do the second half. That's when you get to get and meet everybody. This is class number 36. So we are approaching 250 wounded vets that have been to our program. I don't think we're going to get there with this. We've got 7 guys coming in this time. I think that brings us to 247. I'm not 100% sure, but it's awful close to 250. That's a lot. That's a lot of soldiers helped. May we keep on going. Next, Ken. I'm calling him Ken.
Jimmy Schwanowski, when I advanced... Jimmy, when I advanced my blade on my small shoulder plane, there's no room for the shaving. Should I widen the throat? It's a rockler.
Well, I don't know what a rockler looks like, but if mine has an adjustable throat. If yours doesn't, yeah, you can only adjust it once, right? Well, you can't make it any smaller, but you have to have projection, so you got to get the shaving out of there. And it's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's not like you're using the shoulder plane on the surface where you're going to see it. So if there's a little bit of tearing where that happens, probably isn't going to matter. Typically, you're using it on the end grain anyway, so it doesn't really matter at all in that circumstance. And I appreciate all the condolences that have come in. It was very nice of you people. You people. The famous Don Cherry line.
Mark Merrill says, what's your preference on buying lumber? Get it from a place like Home Depot or an actual building supply store?
Mel. It's my preference. Buy it from Mel, Exotic Woods. You're always going to be better off. I mean, look what I just told you. I mean, I went into a lumber supply store and found a treasure trove. But typically, I would like to buy my lumber from guys who know the stuff. And Mel knows, he's the most, well, he and Gary Channon are 2 people that I know personally that know more about wood than anybody else. So if I'm going to spend my hard-earned money, and lumber prices have gotten so expensive, I want to buy it from people who know what they're talking about. And they know what to buy. Because it starts right from the guy who cuts it down, right? So, and the stuff you buy in the big box stores has been standing there and it gets cupped and bowed, and you usually typically buy it from them where it's already surfaced. So if you're buying a 3/4 inch board, by the time you flatten it, you're not going to have a 3/4 inch board. So I would, if you're going to do this craft, you need to find somebody that you like that deals in this wood and be nice to them. I remember we used to buy a lot of our lumber from a place in Woodstock, New Brunswick called Maritime Lumber, the original owners. There's a huge kiln, and we would go up there, and they would have stuff stacked to the ceiling, and it was, I don't know how tall those ceilings were, can't even guess. And we would go, and I would give the forklift guy money for lunch. If he would get that bundle for me that's way up there, and that's probably going to take him 35 minutes to move all the stacks. But I made it worth his while. And I'll tell you something else too. You're supposed to buy off the top of the stack because nobody wants to get stuck with the junk. But they also don't want you coming in, digging through their pallet and leaving boards all over the place. So if you're going to if you're nice and neat and you always leave it stacked properly, then they may just set that pallet down somewhere and you just get what you want. Just leave the pile nice and neat. You want to go after those wide boards in the bottom? More power to you. So here's how you stack lumber in case no one's ever told you. You always stack the pile so that the outside always remains flush. So you may be, stacking pieces like this, and you don't start stacking like that, and then having one sticking out over or one sticking short, then your pile ends up being a pyramid. So as you stack your pile, hard to show you this way, as you stack your pile, you always keep the outside edges flush. And then if you need to, if you have a, you have a gap, you're always gonna have a gap on the inside. You'll bridge your gap. I can't do this with pieces all over, but you'll cross over the gap. You have to keep this outside flush and stack it like this. Just try to remember this. Keep the outside of your stack flush. Your gaps are going to be on the inside. Bridge the gap with the next board so that it ties the whole pile together and you don't have something falling apart. Keep one end flush. Boards often, depending on the grade, random length, random width. So keep one end flush like this. You don't want boards in here. And this end all stays nice and flush. These edges stay nice and flush. The difference is out the back side. So learn how to stack lumber and be really nice, treat them well, and that'll pay huge dividends. Being able to go in and pick through the pile to get what you want, wow, that's worth an extra $3 or $4 a board foot. Remember, you're going to have waste. You're going to have waste. So if you can get what you want, that's going to cut back on the amount of boards you're going to have to buy in order to get the decent stuff you want for your project. And this is your main guy. This is a feed you your habit. Treat him well. Mel is fantastic. He has great staff, and they'll go in and take whatever time you need, teaching you what you're buying, so you know, tell you what you can do, some of the limitations. He may help tell you stuff that you wouldn't even know about the boards. There are some things that you just don't want to use certain woods for. So find a good supplier. One last question.
Somebody actually in the chat asked about the fundraising for the Purple Heart program and how it was going, if we were on track to meet our goal for the end of the year and all that sort of things.
Well, that's you, buddy.
And so I can answer that. And we are on track, barely. We're on budget so far. So donations come in if they have the first of the year, then by the end of the year we'll be good.
Right, that's right. So not all the donations that have been made have come in yet?
Right.
Right. But are they asking about Canada or United States or both?
Both.
Both. So I have a question for you. How are we doing for Canada? Because we were tight.
Well, there was money given in memory of Bo, so that's going to help the
And
Canadians.
did we not get somewhere around 40,000 Canadian on that one?
Yeah.
So in Canadian dollars, each soldier we bring in is about 10,000. And we had 3 Canadians in the last class. So we did that donation in memory of my son Bo, and we raised about 40,000. My wife is putting together an ongoing fundraiser that will be in Bo's memory, that will be to take care of Canadian vets going to the Purple Heart Project. And there'll be no more announced about that later, but I'll tell you something exciting. John from Florida, the guy who's financing the advanced class, the guy who gave us $50,000 one night and gave us another, he gave us $52,000 back in the fall to cover the October class. John said, Rob, we've got a memorial for Bo, a celebration of his life on August 8th, which is Kim and I's 40th anniversary. It's going to be here in town, and John already booked his flight. He's coming. He's going to be here for 4 days. So we're gonna do something that night. I want people to meet him and recognize the kind of people that step up and help us. He's made it entirely possible for us to do our October class, which, by the way, we are still waiting on 2. We're supposed to have already had the names. Well, it was 2, Jake. Everybody had to have their dovetail drawer sent in, postmarked by June 30th. And there's 2 that we're still waiting on that are in transit. As soon as they'll get here, we'll do it probably this coming Thursday. I don't want to say it out loud, but that's what we're going to do. Okay, So second half is going to be on Thursday night. We will see you 8 o'clock. Am I right? No, 7 o'clock Eastern on Thursday night right here. You're going to meet these guys. It's going to be fantastic. And we're going to make a big deal about who's going to be coming to our drawer making workshop. We've had lots of soldiers, past alumni, or alumni that have entered their application, and we'll let you know who the 12 lucky ones are going to be.